I've seen a lot more.
So we're
emotion
going?
out of the coach than
Okay,
the-
so
I mean, that's something too. He's been pretty passive.
we're gonna
about the whole thing.
call the meeting to order at 6:08 PM. It looks like for calling the roll, we're all here. And welcome Larry Bjork, Supervisor Bjork, our new member. He was replacing Tim Leno. So the first order of business is approval of the previous meeting minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All right, any discussion about the minutes? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the motion passes unanimously. Was there any public comment? Oh, do you have public comment? Okay. Yes. You could either grab a microphone or the podium, turn it on.
Hi, my name is Bob Bauer, E8399 110th Avenue, Mondovi. And I just got a little comment I'd like to bring up to you guys. I believe you guys are in charge of the land of the county-owned property. You guys take care of I'm trying to go through the proper channels, I guess is what I'm gonna do. I don't know how much land the county should really own. They own a great deal of property, and a lot of the property is never used for anything. And under my knowledge, if a couple deer hunters once a year, you know. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the land down in Rock Falls, Rock Creek, town of Rock Creek. Ever heard about it? Ever? There's 3 islands down there, and it's all waterlocked. It's not landlocked. It's all waterlocked. The river, that's why they call them islands, because you can't get to it. No public access unless you have a boat, and it's got to be a river boat. It can't be a big boat. It's not much water there. So basically, nobody can get to it unless you have a boat. And right now, I believe that the county owns almost 2,000 acres down there, and it's not being used for anything. The county has, I mean, you could talk to your county conservationist to be Chase, go through him and talk to him, get some opinions on what they actually do with the property. Now, I'm not sure how much the county should really own if it's not being used for anything, but the towns, the county, and everybody's looking for more revenue. The town of Rock Creek has approximately 1,000 acres in their district, and the town of Prue has another 700 and some. So I tried to put it all together on a map, but I probably missed some. So I'm saying it's between 1,800 and 2,000 acres. If that land was sold at, let's say, 3,000 an acre, we'd have over $5 million, 5.3 million. That would cover our whole bill for our county shop. I mean, we wouldn't have to borrow anything. We wouldn't have to raise taxes or anything. But I'm sure we could get more than that, maybe 3,000, 4,000. So we could almost get $7, $8 million out of that property. So we could pay a lot of bills. We could fix some roads. We could really do some with this. I did talk to Chase. I ran it by him just so he knew nobody would surprise him. He gave me his opinion, but I'd like you guys to get that directly from him. I don't want to say something that I shouldn't be saying about it. He had mentioned something about it. It's to the point where it needs to be logged, but it's going to take a lot of his time and a lot of work. So I don't know if he just rather off sell it the way it is. I don't know. That's up to him. But it says all floodplain. It cannot be built on. It's all gets flooded when the river comes up. That's why the county bought it in the first place. It was a good investment. They've owned it for over 80 years. Some of the records I drew up was 1944 is when they bought some of the property, and some in 43. And people in Dunn County don't even know we own it. So why own it? If we can get money out of it, especially if we can put it into recreational taxes, that would help the county, and the towns need the money just as well as anybody else, because the county does not pay taxes to the towns on their property. So they've been losing that property for 80 years. They need the money just as well as the county does. So if we could put that, if we could sell it to some outfitters, or now, back in the day, there was no big outfitters, but now everybody's got millions of dollars to spend just on hunting. I would think we could get some outfitters to come in and buy it. there's one island that's totally separate, that's probably 380 acres, one separate island all by itself. That one probably easier to sell if somebody wants to buy that one. If not that, maybe the DNR would pick it up. It probably wouldn't help the taxpayers as much, but there's payment and liable taxes from the DNR, so they get something out of it anyway. I know some outfitters are buying every farm there is in Buffalo County. You cannot buy anything in Buffalo County, these outfitters coming and buying them. So I'm sure that they might be interested in stuff like that. But I wanted to start with you guys and see if we can bring it up. I know it's gonna come for our meeting in March on capital improvement. We're gonna come up with money to do all this stuff. There's other county board members that wanted me to bring it to you guys, so there's other people talking about this already. If we could sell it, start now, and by the time, I don't know, 2026, when they start building the county shop, we'd have all the money. If we can get it sold right away, we could draw interest on it. We got earmarked all that money for that purpose. That's up to the board, I guess, at that time. I don't, sooner, it'd be better if we sold it sooner, that way we could collect interest now, but, I just want to bring it to your attention, that's probably going to be brought up again. It's going to be brought up until, I know there's a lot of board members that don't want to borrow money. There's a lot of them that don't want to raise taxes. So this is one way out. It's, you guys got to start here, and I hope you get it on your agenda for down the road, so you guys can start working on it, and if you guys decide not to, I guess it's dead from day one, but unfortunately, we're not want to get out of it. Any questions? You want, I don't know, I can show you on a map. I got it on my computer up there if you guys want to see that. It's huge. It's a lot of land down there. Pardon? I'm going on my computer. I can't share my computer, can I?
Join the meeting?
No, I'd have to be at the meeting, I guess. Yeah, I'm share the computer. You can pull it up on GIS and it'll map it all out for you, but
So, yeah. We can just, yeah. We're not supposed to like ask questions.
Pardon?
We're supposed to take it in,
oh, okay.
but.
But if you have questions that need answers, so you can take it in, that's what I'm saying. But
Right.
if you need to ask me questions later, I'll be at the meeting, I'll be here every county board meeting, I guess, I'll be around, so. Hey, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, that's one document. On a page copy.
All right. I don't know, Scott. Do we deal with the other land besides the parks?
So I have not dealt with anything for county property other than the parks. Historically, that's been Land and Water Conservation that has dealt with that stuff, or Nick has dealt with that stuff.
Okay, not that.
It hasn't really come up, and so, I mean, this seems like a logical thing for the facilities committee to, I guess, start it if you're inclined to do so, but I think your information has been received, and my recommendation would be that you tell the county manager to look into it and get back to it. And I'll work with her on it. No, I mean, we can look into it and see if it's viable. It's certainly a legitimate thing to think about.
All right,
This is number 3. It's only one.
so I think number 5 is being collated for our lease discussion.
is.
It is,
So
yes.
for those who didn't, get a chance to look at the electronic copy. So this is coming back because we had a question last meeting about camping off the footprint of the non-reviewed hospital. And so since most of us haven't seen what that footprint is or what the lease is, we're counting. We requested those and, we're gonna take a look and see if things were clear, if camping needed to be addressed. So I don't know, did people get a chance to take a look? Did anyone have any initial thoughts?
Not really a expertise for me. Um, No, especially, I don't know.
Remember to use your mic.
I can take a hold of power.
Got it. No, I did not have questions or additional thoughts to come in. It's not an area of expertise, but was there anything in particular that was jumping out, folks looking at or concerned aside from the fact that we just didn't have any?
You know, I look at the footprint,
Okay,
The right
another
one.
one
The right
page.
one.
when I look at this footprint, the parking lot is out of it. So even if they park cars, you're out of their footprint. That's all I want.
I believe the lease said that they were allowed to use it. Part of their lease.
Okay, here's the beginning of the original lease.
So that means that parking lot could be the whole area then.
Potentially.
Yes.
Potentially, but I just took some notes. Oh, sorry, you have to hold it. Our microphone's all turned on. So I noticed that the lease ran until August 31st, 2038. And then they have the option to renew for another 25 years. There was something that said we need to report back every 5 years. The facility. So that's something, I don't know what year we're on.
Pardon me, Chair. So I guess I just want to clarify, are you looking at the copy that is 2018 or the 2005?
The 2005.
Okay, just want to make sure, because originally the 2018 was sent out. Just wanted to let you guys know that the 2018 was a proposed lease that was never signed and never agreed upon and never finished. That was the original one that was sent out. So now we're getting ready to 2005, which is actually the signed and agreed upon with the amendments to it.
It looks like rent is $1 per year.
No, that's the wrong one. Oh, in the
Original 2005.
in the original 2005.
2005, it
lease?
was $1. And then,
Oh, yes, that was amended.
and it was amended, yes, to, for 2,501 plus CPI. So then the question is, where, is that still happening?
So it's my understanding from talking with Menominee Youth Hockey is that they paid a lump sum of rent upfront for the original $50 or 50-year lease. They made a $50 payment instead of doing it $1 a year. They paid that upfront. That would have been back in 2005.
Okay, and then so the amendment,
Yeah, the terms, the payment terms changed. So they were, that $1 a year was changed to an amount that, I think there was a base amount, then it was adjusted based on the, like small cap or Midwest Metropolitan Consumer Price Index, Class B. I can't remember what it says right now because I'm Yeah, I'm wrapped up in the collation, but
It's a CPI, all urban consumers Midwest size, class BC index or appropriate successor index for the
Yeah.
12-month period.
that's a real thing.
Okay.
It's, yeah, it's a real thing, but that is the rent. And so, the $50 lump sum payment, and I won't argue whether it was made or not, I don't know if it was, I'm not sure it was.
Yeah.
But if it was, it did not absolve them of the responsibility of paying rent subsequent to that after it was changed. And the purpose of the rent, at one time, the fare for the rec park was sort of entirely, it was held and used by the county. And we gave permission, maybe through a lease, I don't know. But we gave permission for the facility to be used for hockey in the winter. And so a temporary rink was set up. UW Stout played there. Menominee High School played there. And as the Youth Hockey Association gained momentum and popularity and participation of students and so forth, they became interested in having a larger, or having more control and a nicer facility that they could use. And so the initial stages of that, the county had owned bleachers, and the bleachers were, if you disassembled them, it voided the warranty, and so if anything happened, there was no longer a warranty for them, and the Hockey Association wanted permanent bleachers and permanent boards, the wall between the ice and the spectators. And as a result, the building that the rink is in, there was considerably less space to use for the commercial exhibits and vendors. Because before things really changed over, the facilities staff would take these bleachers and wheel them on out into the outdoors and make room. And at some point in time, the bleachers became permanently affixed to the floor, the base, the boards, the sideboards are there and they can't be moved. And so, so my understanding is that the purpose of the rent was to make up for the loss of revenue that would come from the utilization during the fair of all the space in that building for commercial exhibits and vendors. And so that's the reason that it changed. And that came in, I don't know, one of the amendments,
2007, it started.
probably number one, then, number one and number two. Yeah, some things changed in the First Amendment. So what you have is you have a lease agreement that was executed in 2005. And then there was an amendment that changed some things. And then a couple of years later, there was another amendment that changed things. And then in the third amendment was to take the lot west of 11th Street out of the footprint. And you'll be getting that. There's a map, there should be a map showing the footprint. There's a parcel 1 and a parcel 2, or a parcel A and a parcel B. Parcel 1 or parcel A is the parking lot area that now has a regional water retention pond or water drainage pond. Anyway, that was taken out, and then there was a typo in it, so amendment 4 was to correct the typo. But during the course of this, the primary purpose of the rent is to make up for the loss of revenue that the fair board would have by not being able to have that space available for people to sign up for and pay, to have their vendor space or exhibit space or whatever, in that commercial building that has now transformed into a hockey arena.
So that is no longer really necessary as such, or,
My understanding, and again, I was not involved in these negotiations. My understanding is that once the new meeting room, there's a large room on the west end of the building that wasn't there. And once that was built, it was apparently discussed that it would no longer be necessary to charge that because they had more space to accommodate commercial vendors or commercial exhibits during the fair. However, that was never, if that was an agreement, it was never formalized in any kind of an amendment to the lease or in a new lease. In subsequent discussions in 2019, we talked about that, and that was one of the things that we were trying to get into a new lease. But the lease, some of the provisions in the lease were not well received by the County Board of Supervisors, and so we were kind of told to go back to the drawing board. And the only thing that we salvaged from it was correcting the typo so that the correct lot was actually removed from the footprint. But it has been discussed, and I believe it's probably true that that it was recognized that the loss of revenue wasn't the same kind of concern that it was initially, because that was a newly constructed room, the room that's, it looks like it's always been there, but it hasn't.
you agree with that, Deb, the fair board?
Yeah, there was, and I remember those discussions that we had, and I can't remember the exact thing, what was the hangup with not executing that amendment, but then it was just changed like that, but definitely with adding that vanity room, it actually made the space a lot nicer because we can separate things out. And we also got use of 2 locker rooms that we didn't have before that we could use for like a family room and things. So that's where that kind of went by the wayside, that payment for the loss of the bleacher space.
But technically, it's still in the lease, but we don't know who's billing or who's, is anyone paying that money?
I suspect maybe not.
Paying
don't-
for the bleacher space, for the loss of the space.
Yeah, the rent.
Yeah, no, because I was in that whole thing, and I think, was James still here then, maybe?
Yes.
Yes, and I think, he was in the discussion, I know that, and they said not to pay it anymore, because of the extra space, and it was supposed to be amended in some document, I think it never happened. COVID hit then, sure, and,
Right.
and I don't think it ever got finished, but, yes, they were allowed not to pay, or didn't, I guess I should say the rent for the loss of the space, or the payment for the loss of the space was waived.
Right, well, yeah, it wasn't, technically it wasn't, because there wasn't an agreement,
Right.
a
Verbally.
formal legal agreement. But the negotiations that we engaged in over the course of, probably a dozen meetings, yielded an agreement among those in the room, recognizing that this would be subject to approval by the county board. It yielded an agreement that the draft revision or, the novation of the lease agreement would include a provision that eliminated the rent again. Because it was recognized by all of us that the initial purpose for the rent was to make up for the loss of revenue. The loss of revenue wasn't an issue anymore with the new large room added onto it. It just was never formalized. And so technically the lease, the rent is still part of the lease and still legally a requirement.
It's a stipulation that I'm not able to find it now, also about reimbursement of insurance costs that were several $1,000s, I think.
That was in the draft,
In
the
the
two
draft.
thousand eighteen draft. That was
Oh,
never.
that might have been in the
never approved.
in the agreement that we kind of put together to try to get ratified by the county board, and it wasn't.
That was one of the stipulations. that-
Yeah, it was probably something that we had agreed to include in the draft, but it just never, it wasn't legally, it didn't pass the last most important test, which is a majority of yeses.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is one kind of big gray area we'll have to
Yeah.
kind of think about. Something, just for my own benefits, I said that, so Youth Hockey pays all the utilities on the premises, which means the whole rec park.
Yes, Menominee Youth Hockey pays all utilities on the whole rec park. What they do for the electric meters is they are charged an electric bill, and then they charge back to racing. There's a meter out by the grandstand that the meter gets read, and then they charge that.
Except for the sign.
Except for the sign on Stout Road. We do, facilities gets charged the electric for that sign.
Okay, good to know. And then there was something, but maybe that was in the other agreement about the county shouldn't withhold approval of changes without good reason. That might have been in the revised.
That's probably in both, but I haven't read it lately, so
And hockey could mortgage the property, potentially, was
Mhm.
one of the things I saw. But we wouldn't be liable.
oh, if they did, yeah.
Right. Then, so they need to have ice for 150 days. I read that, and give the high school and Stout reasonable access.
Is that in the original?
That was
I know that was in
the draft.
that was, I remember reading.
There
that
were a
draft
lot of
before.
issues that we tried to resolve. I mean, we literally met 12, 13, 14 times over the course of a year. And we tried to resolve all kinds of little questions and things that they wanted in and that we wanted in. And in the end, the draft proposal that we had wasn't accepted. And so some of the things that are in there are probably really good ideas, and they could be salvaged out, but
It's 165 days, it says, in the original.
yeah,
October 1st through March 31st. And that the county is allowed 28 days for the fair. And it sounded, or maybe that was something about, I had parking, but I think that might have been in the revised.
And as far as your question on utilities, we pay the utilities during that 28 days.
Right,
The fair does.
yes.
I believe that's in the lease.
Yeah. Water, electricity, heat.
Is that a lot for those days? Do you know on average? And
Depends if the racing guy shut the lights off at night.
that's in their lease. We might get to that. But it sounded like they could actually charge for parking if they want it. I don't think anyone does. and that they could sublease the egg building for cold storage.
Which they do.
But I didn't see anything about renting it out for events. Like the egg building, right? Because they do the jacket. Where they rent it out.
They rent it out for the pony pull, and then they do the winter storage for campers and boats and stuff. Is there any other events that go on in
Yeah, there's a
cattle
couple
barn?
other ones, there's the, they, in the past, they've done the, a dog thing in there, but I don't think that happened last year. Cause they use the other building for the 5-ball competition twice a year. The state tractor pull, the state sanctioned pull is in the other cement building, or the ice, where the ice is. To answer your question, the total that we paid for the fair this past year was $3,703.68 for electricity, water, and gas.
Thank you. And so I don't know if that's something that should be addressed as other events besides the food storage. I don't know if that matters. or
Well,
not.
the ag building is included
Right.
in their area of control. They're allowed to do anything.
One in there.
Yeah. We lease that, the county leases that, that building as part of the lease agreement. Things that aren't included in, this is in, section or article 1. The swine barn isn't, included. Horse barn, wash racks, milk house. Some of this stuff is, so it's in their footprint, but they don't have the use of it. I think the swine barn is used for storage of metal gates.
Nope, the coverall has got some stuff stored in it.
Oh.
The swine barn is not.
But they don't use that. The hockey association doesn't use that. They do have the ag building.
And
A kid got real bad that could use the swine barn for a penalty.
Possibly.
If they had it, if they had enough players.
so, and then if we would sell it, but maybe that was in the draft, that they had the first right to. First right refusal, I see that. Somewhere.
There is, yeah, in the original lease agreement, there's a right of first refusal. The parameters of that in the lease agreement, essentially though, are that that they have to buy the rec park. I mean, we could offer to sell it. We could offer to partition the property, get a certified survey map or something and sell a certain area with the buildings that are of interest to the hockey association. But absent of that, the right of first refusal extends to the rec park. So if we offer, if the county were to sell the property, offer to sell the property in one parcel, then their right of first refusal would apply to the entire rec park parcel. If the county chose to sell a piece of property of interest in the rec park somewhere, the right of first refusal would apply to that. One of the things we were trying to change in the renegotiation was to limit the scope of their property values. Were not, in 2005, weren't really, they weren't anything what they are now. And it's kind of unrealistic if the county would to choose to sell the entire rec park. It's probably true that the hockey association would not have the ability to match the, an offer received by someone, a developer or whatever. And so, but right now, the way it is, the right of first refusal applies to whatever it is that the county would decide it wants to sell. So it would get put on the market. If an offer came in, we would tell the person, part of the invitation for bidding or sales or whatever would include, the proviso that any offer made is going to be extended to the Youth Hockey Association, and if they're interested in purchasing it on the same terms, they can.
Thank you. And so, thank you, Scott, for bringing this. It's been very informative reading through this and trying to make it make heads or tails. And we found a few things where it's like that rent. It's like, well, where did that happen? Technically, we should still be getting rent. But
This may be a naive question, but is there a means by which any kind of schedule of payments or the issuing of an invoice that represents whatever the agreement is distributed annually or to somebody? Or does this just entirely like on an honor system where someone puts it on their calendar? January 1st, we should probably pay that bill. Because it is complicated. I mean, the lease itself lists, and again, I'm not even sure I entirely understand the two different things that are dated 2005. One is the original signed document and one is the proposed changes, but that never got adopted, I should say, or.
Let's see.
I think the
This
printed
is-
ones are the actual amendment.
This is an annotated lease.
Okay. This is the annotated version of the same lease.
Yeah.
So it explains what the changes
To
are.
make it easier to understand, I took the original lease and all of the amendments and stuck them in where they were and described the changes or the impacts that the amendments have on the lease. So if you read through this, you can see on page 3 of the annotated lease. So it talks about the original section 2.
Yeah.
So here's the original section 2, but then just below that is the current section 2, and that describes the second amendment, which was adopted in May of 2013, and this is the new language for section 2. So section 2 was completely replaced with new language. And then to be of further assistance, I created a series of strike throughs and
I
underlines
saw that, yes.
to help show you or to help illustrate how impactful those changes were to the lease agreement.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the annotated lease is the lease with extra information in it. It's not the official lease. It's just everything is in one place with
Explained.
hopefully my version of easy to understand legalese.
And the signer on this, on the part of the Hockey Association is still the same individual who's responsible for delivering on all of this? Or being responsible
Not
for,
likely.
not necessarily?
No, it's an organization and they have, they have a president, a vice president, and they have there's a youth hockey association and then there's the ice board. And I'm not very well versed in how either of the organizations work, but they get new presidents every couple of years, a new person comes in, and so.
Is there any reason to think that they're read in to all of this when they enter that position, or are they likely as?
I suspect probably,
Clueless as they might be.
Yeah, okay, I can probably answer that question, but the ice board is the part of the Menominee hockey together with them, and we're the ice board is like the financial end of it and does the actual running of the footprint or running of the buildings and doing all the leasing, and they collect the funds other than anything that's actually involved with the playing of hockey. The Youth Hockey Association just handles that part. They handle their teams, they handle the coaches, they handle the like registration fees. But like for the running of and managing the park, that's the ice board piece, that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
And ice board has been pretty stable, but youth hockey does elect new officers probably every 2 or 3 years. Somebody new is on. So I can't remember who did that, but I know they're not.
Not the same people. Okay.
They're not. Stacy Hinsman was for several years, and now it's Mike Jackson. Who's the president.
Thank you.
And I do feel they have an understanding of what's all involved too, because and they actually, you know, the ice time is rented, so they know that they're invested in it. They have to pay the ice board rental fees to operate the rink, and all of the expenses for the rink go through the ice board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions?
Chairman, mine goes way back to first at the beginning when we were talking about camping. And my question would have to be, you know, how much camping is, well, it's easiest one would be determined would be fair camping. And then hockey camping. But the big one that I see is racetrack camp for multiple nights. And as far as I know, you know, no one has, you know, ever had the effort or paid somebody to find out how many campers are there actually. I mean, I was there this summer for one of the 2-day things, and it just blew my mind how many people were there. And I know one thing, you can't park that stuff many places without having payment. And we have a few with electrical outlets that I think that we collect a payment on, but most of them, you know, all run with generators. And I mean, they even had the area out in front of the fair office, you know, full of campers. So, you know, I don't want to be unfair in any way, but I'd like to know how many are actually camping. So, you know, I don't know whose job that'd be. I don't want to see Scott out there with a clicker and a flashlight.
Hey, if that's what,
I certainly don't want to see on a facilities committee member out there with a clicker and a flashlight. That'd really be bad.
if that's what it takes.
So I mean, if we do make any decision or down the road on camping, we really should find out what we're dealing with.
It's not a bad idea, and I think, you know, the Hockey Association has, when this lease agreement was first signed, camping was not on their radar screen. I think it's fair to say that. But as they've utilized this nice building that they have for different things, one that comes to mind is antique car or hot rod show or whatever. It's 2 days long, and people, you know, they come up with a mobile home and they got a trailer where they put their 55 Chevy in, and they want to camp for it. So they've shown an increase in their interest in utilizing area within the rec park for camping. There really isn't any specific provision that permits it. It's all been kind of just a sort of a forbearance, you know, I mean, they have the event and they let the camping happen, but there's nothing, you know, there's nothing that defines it in the current lease agreement. It's probably something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and currently, the way the camping works is that Mount Youth Hockey has control of the electrical for the camping spots throughout the rec park. They pay the bill. They have the keys for the locks to turn those on and off. So they have the power to say whether there's going to be camping or not, whether it's on the hockey footprint or not. I know that for some events, they work with racing as far as having camping. The lease, once we get to looking at the racing lease, the racing lease states that there is camping allowed for the Punky Manor. So that one is okay, and racing does the camping for that, and then they work with hockey as far as the electrical that is used.
And I believe the camping does involve, permits from the health department.
Yes.
For units, so yeah, it's probably not as formal as it perhaps ought to be, but it's not, it's not a completely unorganized, activity.
And I can expand on that. They do, in their lease agreement that they offer to people that are coming there, they have it in there that if there is camping, that has to be approved by the youth hockey group. And then they are required to work with the county to get the permit. And they know that they're gonna be charged for electricity, and each one's kind of handled on a different basis. There's, I know the fly ball, the pony pole is probably the two biggest ones that youth hockey would be involved with camping. There's maybe a few people that stay for other things, but then the racing, of course, has theirs, but then they're charged, they have to get the permits too, to make sure. So.
Yeah, so, but Scott's concern was the after kind of math, right, of camping and what it means to the facilities department.
The concern I had was that Menominee Youth Hockey has a lease. They have a stated footprint, and the events that they have that involve camping and possibly the events themselves do not stay on their leased footprint.
So that is definitely something that needs to be addressed in the lease in some way, so that I'm guessing there are costs to the county after the camping.
There can be, there has been campers that have driven across or been pulled across the county property and left ruts in there, and nothing's been repaired on that. If there is cleanup left over, then we have to have facility staff do that. There's campers out there that go ahead and do a fire pit and just do it right on the ground. So then you have your lawn has a burn spot in it. Not to mention, we go through and put on all new cover plates and stuff on our outlets for the camping, and they're careless with them. They get wrecked. They get broke off right away. Try to have weatherproof covers and put one on. A couple weeks later, they're broke off.
Are there, specific, when there's camping taking place, are there specified, campsites, camping sites, or is it just kind of willy-nilly?
As far as I know, it's willy-nilly. Nothing is mapped out as a specific camp spot. It's not a campground. They'll pull in by one of the posts that's there for electrical hookup and get close to that. But nothing is set up there as a campground.
Does the city get involved at all with, the fact, I mean, I understand this is county ground, but still it's within the city limits. I mean, as far as actual policing and, I'm thinking about oversight, when there is camping taking place.
Well, since it is in the city limits, the city police would have a jurisdiction on it. But being that it's private property and they're camping on it, I don't know how far that goes.
What kind of issues of liability are there?
I guess any issues of liability would be, if they're plugging into electrical, if somebody getting shocked or something like that.
there is a recreational use statute too, that in order, from a very broad public policy viewpoint, it's generally favored to have use of land opened up for recreational use so that people can enjoy it. And so there's an immunity that comes with it, where you don't have, if people are coming to use property for recreational purposes of their own volition, they voluntarily come, they voluntarily enter the property and do the thing that they're going to do. So, if they turn their ankle on a rut in the ground or whatever, the landowner wouldn't be responsible for that.
They're held harmless.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I suppose you could debate whether same considerations would apply today. I don't think there are more than 6 or 7 whole 40-acre parcels in the county anymore. But at one time, there were tracts of thousands and thousands of acres under ownership of one person. And so that's a doctrine that evolved out of, like I said, favoring having land available for recreational use. So, and it still applies today. A lot of the county carries liability insurance,
Yeah.
and our insurance carrier assigns attorneys to represent the county's legal interests and theirs, whenever something like this comes up, but it applies. Recreational use applies.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
So yeah, so it sounds like we tried to renegotiate this lease in 2018, and try to fix some of these things. But we didn't address camping, but can we perhaps revise and renegotiate?
Yes. Yeah, I think if this committee if you would like us to approach the Hockey Association and ask them if they would be interested in trying to capture some agreements relating to some of the things that we had previously agreed to, we could do that. We could, and we could also, both sides probably carry a little bit of a wish list of things that we'd like to include and see if we might be able to discuss them. We certainly could do that.
One thought I had is, so if they're not actually paying that 2,500 or whatever that was in there, is there a way to renegotiate the fair? So we're not like passing money back and forth. Like, can the fair just use our property for 28 days or?
Oh, they can under the lease agreement.
Right, but without paying the utilities.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
In lieu of,
Anything's possible in that, yeah.
I mean, it just seems kind of odd. And then I don't know if there's something we can build in about camping, like, well, that will help facilities
We could.
in the long run. But I know when they were here last, they said it's fine the way it is. But I mean, technically, we could say, well, but you owe us this amount of rent from 2008.
Good bargaining.
Yeah, we could, and it's something that can be used to, possibly an advantage. But yeah, if you would like us, if that's a consensus of the committee, you'd like us to approach hockey and try to fix some of the things that need to be fixed and see if we can't bring back in some of the things that we had tried to reach agreement on. My recollection is some of the sticking points may have had to do with rent. like not letting it go and, or not having it go away. And, the other one was, I think, the terms on which, the county might transfer ownership interest of the area used primarily by hockey in the event that it was decided to sell or convey some or all of the rec park. I think those were the two primary sticking points, and it was, it was just a yes and no thing, and it was no. And so it just didn't go anywhere after that.
So what do people think?
Chairman, I think we should, go forward and talk to them and everything like that. I wouldn't want the public to think that, the facilities committee was, considering, selling the rec park. I think that might,
No, I don't
cause a
think
riot.
it might.
We tell them where to go down on Main Street, talk to that lady that's got the bookstore. Maybe when they're in there, they'll buy a book and throw it at you. No, I think we need to, to discuss it and understand it even better. I don't have my first meeting and first time seeing this. I don't have a real grasp of it, but, all you have to do is, visit the rest park, at a time when it's being used. And it doesn't make much difference if it's the Dunn County Fair or probably any weekend through the winter. Just drive in there. Or when the racetracks are on and, race season is on, just drive in there. And just see, what, usage is really being done. And, and we, as county board supervisors, are always finding ways to spend money. And, I mean, the road conditions near the racetrack are pretty rough shape. Drive in there and see what it's like. And I've had the opportunity of taking my grandson to middle school the last couple of months. So he gets there at 7:30, and then my trip out of there is through the fairgrounds. And I'm just always, is fairgrounds even a term anymore? I don't know, rec park. But I'm always interested in, the people that use it, even when nothing else is going on. I mean, they're walking their dogs, they're riding their bikes, what more can county government get back to its citizens than a place to have youth development, have, with 4-H and FFA, have youth development with hockey. And Jimmy Mars, who has I'll say $1 million business on a county truckee, was a kid that the high school principal didn't want to give him a diploma because he was going to a races. So and winning. If we're going to give something back to the community, the county, the activities that we have at the rec park are right up there. And we just have to find ways to get everybody under the big tent and get the road fixed and move forward, because, we're going to see much more involvement of young girls in hockey. I've got 6 grandkids in hockey in the Twin Cities and here. And the best one of the bunch is the low granddaughter. She is a star. So young women, have really taken a back seat to, some of those type of activities in the past. But by golly, it's here now. And we're going to see more asking of county time and county rec time for women's hockey. So that's my spiel. I think we need to get together with them and get things worked out.
All right, sounds like there's consensus that we should move forward with drafting some revisions. Is there anything specific anyone wants to include?
I guess just based on what you described as a kind of mysterious resistance on the part of the board to accept previously submitted recommendations regarding the.
Well, it was a pretty good menu of many different things.
Yeah,
And it was a all or none vote.
I see.
So, I mean, it wasn't, there was no, for example, there was no motion to address, amended or address individual items or take things out or go back and, forget about these two things, but talk about the rest of it or whatever. So it was all up or down and so I think the resistance was really kind of focused in on conveyance and rent. I think that's where the sticking points were. A lot of the other stuff I think was probably well received, but it was not, it was all stapled together. So,
So maybe just as a matter of socializing or workshopping those stickier issues in advance of seeking
Yes.
a vote.
yeah, or leaving them riding alongside it up until a point where they might be added or not. And then we could, incorporate them.
So Nick, when you say that it was an all or nothing vote, are you referring to on the county side or on the hockey side?
The county.
The
I mean, we
county.
had a draft and it was everything that we had talked about over the course of many. We had a draft and everything that we had talked about over the course of many meetings was all in there.
Mhm.
And a couple of the things were, weren't supported. And so all of it didn't move to the next step, which is, formal ratification of it.
Sure.
Or approval of it. So a lot of the stuff can be salvaged out and we could, come back to the Hockey Association and talk with them about it and we could add some things in. Camping is one. Our experience in, I may, at the risk of receiving some criticism, our experience in 2020 gave us a little bit of a problem with it because of the lease agreement did not give the county board the right to restrict or regulate activities in the facility in the interest of public health.
Yep.
And so that's a provision that I believe would be useful to have in there. It's unlikely to occur again. It would be 1 in 150-year pandemic or 1 in 100 year at least. But it's probably something good. Under the current lease agreement, I'm going to be 100 years old when it expires, if I make it that long. And so that's the number, 100 years, that needs to be, I think, addressed. And there may be other things. And if you have ideas or suggestions, you can let us know. You don't have to formally identify a committee, but I would propose that the chair, Supervisor Vogel, the county manager, Deb, Scott, and I meet and talk with the representatives from the Hockey Association about things that we might be able to agree on, and then we can come back to you. But I don't think it'd be a real quick process. It wasn't last time. But, and we're recognizing political expediency. We have some districts, where there's not, at least, in the clerk's records, there's not a record of taking out papers. We'll have some contested races, and Supervisor McCullough has indicated that he would really hope someone else would be the chair. And so some of the political prerogatives and, some of the political appetite that this board has right now for taking on issues and policy in a certain way may be different. And so I think would be appropriate to, have a measured and thoughtful approach to it. And, we won't be able to get this back to you for your January meetings. I guess what I'm saying.
I'm guessing some of the opposition, I'm just guessing though, might have been, because I mean, under the current dollar a year, that doesn't benefit the county really in any way. I mean,
Yep.
so.
Well, there is a rent. There is a rent. It's that consumer price index rent.
Right, but it sounds like that was handshake agreement.
Well, I don't know if it was a handshake
Not to
agreement.
do it anymore.
Technically, it has not been eliminated.
But the
And they
draft
know
did, the draft did, so.
It did, and we talked about that and the importance of that and recognition that it was apparently, I wasn't part of but there was an understanding that isn't necessary anymore because of the additional space that became available.
So yes, let's do some talking and we have a draft already. That might be some
It's a
place
good
to
place
start.
to start.
Yeah.
I can just redline the things that were the most controversial or more difficult to accept, and we can, maybe start from there and add in anything that members of the committee think, you should include. Just let us know.
The danger of conflating or bringing another item in. I know the first meeting I attended, there was a discussion about the shooting range and the 400-yard addition and the cutting of trees and whether or not revenue from that should accrue back to the county or sit with the association in question. And it sounds like there's likely to be more of these issues coming up in a time where local governments are short on revenue. Should the old agreements of the past, which allowed smaller organizations with smaller memberships to benefit from publicly held land or other resources. Is there any guidance around that the county might consider rather than handling all of these things as a one-off? I just can anticipate that there might be more, even the concern that, I'm so sorry, my fellow county board member, remind me of your name.
Supervisor Bauer.
Thank you. Had raised, I think we're probably going to be hearing more proposals from more fields. And I don't have a strong opinion about it one way or another, but I would anticipate it might benefit the county committees to even have a loose conversation about it in a future meeting. Just, do we want to overall say that if the use of county lands or county resources is being primarily limited to a small special interest group, should there be some kind of going rate or for the use of that property? And I don't know what that would be, but I'm just forecasting this won't be the last time we'll have been going through this tree level document with it, and maybe some guidance.
Tree level, I've not heard that before, but
That was Scott sending it over. Here's your tree. Thank you.
The Red Cedar Racing we have, it goes through 2024,
yes.
so it's not a pressing issue at this time. I don't know if anyone saw anything in the racing lease.
What do they do with rest over to the camp?
Yes. They allow overnight camping for people they invite, the racers, right? So there's-
During the September Invitational, that's funky man.
Right. It said for the rest of us, right, that
other people could. Yeah. I remember. Concession. Curfew. This one's a pretty thorough. Which page was the camping on? And I saw it.
Yeah. I didn't.
Oh, overnight camping. So it says only members, employees, agent, contractors of camping. So I mean, that's
they have to
basically
follow the
everybody,
city.
right?
The city's requirements of it.
And so then they pay back hockey for the use and the water, right?
Use of the electrical,
Electrical.
yeah.
Um, But that's not in their footprint, right? Because they're camping out in the middle area.
Right, the racing association doesn't really have a footprint. It's the track and the grandstand and the areas pertinent to that are included
And I don't know if there was,
concession.
a reason behind the $1,000 increase each year, or, and that rent amount is split equally over 6 months, or is that?
It is paid over 6 months, but yeah.
So should that be increased going forward?
I think the rent was increased back in the negotiations of this lease, considering some things that the county has at the facility. I know there was discussion of, there's a sump pump in the east side of the track in the corner that there's a pit there that the pump goes down in there and pumps water out of there when it rains. So that'll keep the track dry and usable during the summertime. And that pump did go out, and it was probably a $4,000 pump. So then it was taken into consideration for the renegotiation of lease to raise their rent to cover some of that cost, because if that goes out and they're only paying $4,500 a year and we have to pay for a $4,000 pump, there goes everything.
I hope they're not paying $4,500.
No, that was back before the negotiations. They're paying more than that now.
And that pump is only installed because of the racetrack?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that's something that could be covered
Mhm.
separately.
Or, right, yeah,
Specifically in the lease agreement.
yep. And when this lease the current lease was negotiated, that wasn't covered, but it was, the rent was raised up per year. Because of the talk of that. I know that was in the past talks.
So the rent amount should probably be looked at. And
It could be.
And I think, there was some language about public works director instead of like facilities.
Yeah.
So that should probably be changed. at
Yes,
some point.
at that time, we had a public works department that included both facilities and highway, and that's been separated again.
And one of my thoughts is, how do we, the noise control? Like how, because it says they need to report it. And the readings should be taken and verified by someone from the county. So I don't know if, you're like,
I took reading
did you?
and it doesn't go past 70 Pascal, whatever the. And that's like a lawnmower,
Is 115.
70.
Oh, 70. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, the limit's 150.
The limit is 115,
Yeah.
yes.
There- it's-
Okay.
I know they used to submit written reports
They
to
do.
administration, I think.
So it says in there that they're to give the Public Works Director the decibel readings. Since I took over as manager 2019, I did not see any, but John Swirsky was the Public Works Director. I know he did receive some of the decibel readings. When Public Works was dissolved, beginning of 2022, since then I have not seen any of those, but I'm sure I could request them at any time and they would provide them for me.
It would be nice to have them come to this meeting. Just to see. 'em.
Yeah, definitely. I can request them to have them for the meeting and we can look at them.
And does someone check the exhaust systems, like the mufflers? No. They're supposed to, but.
So the cars are supposed to be inspected as they come to the track and then they have is it the WSOTA guidelines that they go by, the rules and regulations for WSOTA racing?
Someone who verifies those.
Usually a board member from the racing or whoever's doing the inspections, they're not always board members on the racing either. They have their inspectors that come there. And
Okay.
I know the decibel readings, and I was, not this year, of course, because everything got rained out, but I was out there when they took them and they hand them right to the sheriff's department. Sheriff's deputy reserve officer actually takes them, and he's a county employee, so they are compliant with that part, so.
Okay, I was just curious, because I
Yeah.
didn't know, like, who's out there. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
I have a question. You know, I was in the back of the racetrack one time and there's a section of fence that's kind of missing where you can just walk right over it.
Over toward the horse barn?
It's more like going towards that gas station.
Yeah, over on the side by the horse barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, they requested to put a gate in there from this
And that
committee.
gate don't look very,
They haven't installed that gate yet.
oh, so that's gonna be a future project sometime down the road.
Yep, they're supposed to be putting gates in there, much like the pit gate on the west side of the track. That's supposed to be built and installed by them. Currently, they have some of the cattle gates across there, holding it so people can't get in there.
Well, it doesn't seem like it's very effective.
It's another thing that I'm bringing up to them to see where they're at on it, because, yeah, that was supposed to be done a year ago and hasn't been completed yet.
Okay.
So I will address that with them.
You should crack the whip.
That and a few other things, yes.
All right, any other thoughts about the racing? Lee? Okay.
So when's the deadline for this to be done at the
So the
summer
race-
24?
Yeah, so next year we need a new racing one, right?
So
Come to the board.
The racing agreement or lease ends in 2024, the end of 24. So that'll have to be renegotiated by the end of 24.
A question that might come up in the future, especially after this year. You know, that they pay a flat fee for their usage for the year. And then you come along with a year like this year, and I can't remember the number of weekend races that were canceled, and then someone had to figure, I think Mark Thomas did, the number, you know, each night there are multiple races. And I mean, I think he said there was 50 or 60 races that were canceled where people, whether they have to pay an entry fee for, and then that's refunded. But I mean, you know, the racing association might come to you and say, well, we can't control the weather and you're asking us to pay the same amount when we have rain out X number of nights. I mean, is that going to be, you know, I'm not want to put any ideas in their head, but, you know, it hurt the fair big time. You know, so I mean, I would assume it would hurt the racing association big time. Especially when their 2-day Funky Manor never did happen. Wasn't it rescheduled twice and then
It was rescheduled once and it didn't happen. Yeah. The original didn't happen and then rescheduled and didn't happen.
right, so 2 times, so I mean, you know, that's I have no idea if people are on site with their equipment and then they're told we're racing or we're not racing. I have no idea how they make the decision and when the decision is sent out to the participants. But I would think that'd be something we'd want to at least think about.
Right along with, if it does get, like, we had the situation where they wanted to go into October, which their lease ends in September. So we probably should address that as well.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
on my list.
Yeah, all things that could be negotiated in lease.
All right. All right, so now we can get back to to things that normally scheduled reports.
Well, since was your last, I guess I can just let you know that we had our map or project awards last Sunday and rules meeting that was very well attended and had some happy kids that had the grand champion carcasses. And they also received their checks from the meat animal part for overall performance. Total performance on checks, that's what I'm trying to say. So that all happened. Our fair board is really looking into, we've got a lot of people excited about the open class part. We started with the beef last year. And I sent Scott a bunch of questions to ask him to help us and try to figure out, how we could make this all happen with moving things around. So Scott's looking at that hopefully and can help advise us of what we can and cannot do. One of the biggest challenges we have is that there is no water across the street in those buildings. So to go back to using those buildings for animals, it's one thing to put chicken and rabbits in there, but if you're talking livestock, it's going to take a little bit more water than that. Yeah. So we're doing that. We have some people that have stepped forward one from another county even that really wants to help get this all going and make sure that everything is good. I think the beef one was so successful last year and it was a lot of fun that the rest of them now are all excited about taking off. I'm also working on my financial report that needs to go to the state. That's due the end of January, but I would want to get a head start on it. And we are required to file that in order to get our state aid check. And I did want to let you know that when we talk about our 1 in 100 year disaster we had this year at the fair, we are currently sitting at our income is less than our expenses, so we're at a deficit of $2,740 roughly. We'll have a few things that I think we're pretty much all caught up on expenses. I don't think we have anything much more coming than our per diems for the December meeting that we'll have. All right, but I don't know if that has to. I do want you to keep in mind that 2 years ago we were $42,000 ahead, and last year we were like $7,000 ahead. So hopefully that you're not going to look too negatively on $3,000 or whatever, because we do try to keep we want to keep our expenses and our income, in the right spot. So we didn't go over what we could spend, but we still did bring in as much as we expected. All in all, I was talking to Scott about it a little bit, and we were, when it all was said and done, when you're starting to get all those bills and you gotta pay them, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it came in better than we thought. But part of that is because we had picked up some new sponsors this year, but now we have to make it right because the events that they sponsored didn't happen, but we still have their money. So helps very, went out and got a few really good ones for us. So I guess that's all I have, and I will keep you informed. Might have to talk to Chris, I guess, and Deanna to find out what we do about if we have to do anything with that deficit. So at some point, so,
We'll talk when it's finalized.
all right. Sounds good.
Ask, did you have a question? The issue with the grounds as far as, people pay to get in.
Yep.
And then there are people that get in without paying. Where do you see the greatest need for securing the rec park property with fencing so that if nothing else, people really have to pay to get in? And how much do you think that the fares do?
Well, I know.
That's a big guess.
It's a big guess, yes, and I know we lose revenue, people, we snow fence it off as best we can, the old, what we call the old jail site, for any long-term county residents, we all know there was no jail there. So we have a parking lot there and there's no security there at all. People come over the top of the hill from the water tower, walk in, down through there, and, now with that housing development up there, they drive right down the walking path, to get in too, so. And through the fence, like, they come through there, they've all figured out that there's not very good security over there by the horse barn. They come through.
And then follow up on that, did the county or the fair have an agreement with the original developer for the houses where they drive in as far as fencing that area? And he sort of, it was sold and then they reneged.
Yep. It was put in there and they said, yes, they would ask for, he, at the time that housing development was built, he verbally said that, yes, he could reimburse the fair for lost revenue for having that walking path come through there. But then when the actual property was sold, it was all sold, that never happened.
So how much money do you think we're talking about that county was short of
For
fencing up there?
fencing? Oh, gosh, I don't know, Larry. I can't really give you a guess. I just see people doing it all the time. You've seen people walk through, we've all seen people walk through and try to catch them. And, and that's the gate area on the main gate and the one on the north gate. That's a huge area up there. We have a fence that only goes part way.
Right. But
Which helps, but
from my experience of being around there at the fair, the one up where the housing development is, and because that's right where the parking is.
Mhm.
So you don't have to be very brave to sneak in and then just park the car.
right, yeah.
Right, Ron? I mean, those guys, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
And
We
I
had,
mean,
Ron went and he snow fenced that walking path off this year, but it only took one night and it was down. Because I sent the boys up there to put it up every day. So it's pretty easy to drive through snow fence. But I keep thinking all they would need to do is put some big cement pillars there so you can only walk through or drive, but then they'll just come around the grassy area too. It would take some dollars to fence that, I would think, Scott.
I would think so. I think there were,
That grounds around.
I think there was some quotes about at
Yeah.
one time that you submitted. I don't remember what the amounts
I
were.
don't, I haven't looked through my files.
Yeah, that is a big ass fan.
Yeah. Yep. So.
well,
Yeah.
Well,
No.
something.
yeah,
And those fans were like, well, they really helped this year.
Yeah, but I think, there could be a lot of lost revenue.
Yeah.
From people just walking in, and I believe there's a lot.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of people that pay too.
and I mean, that property gets abused plenty. And being at the fair every day last year, seeing the guys with the, 20s guys that got the decal on the back window of the pickup truck that it went diesel digger. Well, diesel digger was going up the hill, coming around down by the water tower, going up the hill. And I talked to the guys up in,
Reserves. Or the
yeah,
Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff's Department, and I mean, and then also with the guys upstairs in soils, where Chase is. And I says, you know, it's one thing to, you know, cause county damage that just happens naturally. But it's another thing to have county damage that's intentionally done just so you can get your jollies with your diesel digger. You know, and anyone that's, you know, everybody wants to see how far it can go, how much dirt it can throw. And, you know, that's county dirt. And soils guys will tell you, you take off, you know, a strip of sod this wide, going up 200 feet, you know, this strip of sod could be 5 feet deep if erosion starts coming down that hill. And, you know, it's just kind of a, you know, I went out there and got crabby with them. And I mean, you know, that only goes so far. But thank goodness they believed that I was crabby enough that I'd have taken step 2. And they left it. But, you know, I don't want to be Mr. Krabby. I didn't mind it. Just don't want to do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Any more questions about the report? Thank you. Thank you. So Scott, operations, parks and facilities.
Yeah, I don't have a huge report, but facilities worker I was recruiting for last meeting I reported. I did make an offer. Offer was accepted. I have a new facility worker starting January 2nd, 2024. Custodian update. I had reported that I had a custodian that was slated to start. She did start. I started her in the government center here because our custodian here in the government center had an injury and is out until January 12th. So I started out the new custodian here. I already had coverage at Judicial Center, but once the custodian for this building comes back, then I'll get people shifted around where we're going to have them. I had a resignation of a custodian at Neighbors, part-time. So I'm now currently recruiting for a part-time custodian position. That recruitment just started today. Staff got the docks taken out of the water and the restrooms at the parks all locked up. They got pumped for the season. I think we got the docks out probably like a couple days before it started freezing over. So when we were getting the docks out, I was out there myself helping out, and I ended up talking to a couple of guys that were putting boats in, and they sure appreciated that we leave the docks in as long as we do. They told me that I think Chippewa County had their docks out at that time for at least a month and a half already. So the guys around here on Tainer Lake actually get some benefit because we leave them in as long as we can. They do get used. I did get a couple quotes for replacing docks. The one at Kleist Landing and the one at Lambs Creek the docks are in pretty tough shape. So working with Land and Water Conservation with a grant that Chase has, should be able to get some money to go towards new docks for those. At least get one of the two replaced, if not both of them. So we're working on that. And I think that would be very well appreciated. So doing that, you guys got the new salter installed on the F450 truck. So it's all ready to go. It's a nice salter so that we can load once with salt and get all of our parking lots done at once. They tried it out a little bit here, you know, the snow and ice that we've had, but hasn't been a full blown salting on the parking lots. Facilities fleet, we did receive a 2023 Malibu into the fleet. Talking with Enterprise, I had some equity gains from sale of past vehicles. When they were turned back in for the lease to get new ones, Enterprise takes and sells those vehicles, and any of the equity gains on that we get that back. So I took equity gains that we had sitting there and got a hold of this 23 Malibu to add into the fleet because our fleet is so overused. A lot of times staff can't get vehicles. With those equity gains on this Malibu, the lease came out to less than $200 a month. So it was, I thought, a no-brainer to add it into the fleet, have another vehicle, and make the fleet more usable. Financial reports, I just handed them out. I apologize for not grabbing them and throwing them in the packet. So I guess if you look those over, if you have any questions, let me know. But as far as the financials for facilities, things are going good. We're right on track, heading for the end of the year here. Back to Menominee Youth Hockey. They had come to the facilities committee requesting permission to pour concrete in the cattle barn for a project that they were looking at doing. And it really hinged on UW Stout for financial reasons. And talking with them, that project is not going to happen. UW Stout said that's too expensive for them, that they would not do anything with that. So now Menominee Youth Hockey is pursuing the options of building a outside pavilion type place where they can put ice outside. That would be between the arena building and the fair office. So they're working on that. They've discussed that in the past many times, and then they shied away from it. And now it's going to go back to talk of that. And I think Deb has had talks with them about it being a multi-use pavilion where hockey could use it in the wintertime for ice. The fair could use it in the summertime for the free stage, something like that. So if that is something that they would do and we would be able to use it, I guess it would be a good thing. So they'll be bringing plans forward when they have more ready for that. Well, you know, it might be a possibility. Yeah. That is all I have for a report. So any questions?
Was it